Welcome once again to the Speaking Truth to Power podcast. My name is Victoria Fenton.
My name is Alex Race.
And we are back once again talking.
I
know, that's exactly where my head went. Children of the 90s. We are back once again. And we're on a very similar theme, slightly. Today we are going to be talking all about conscious coupling. Not uncoupling, as Gwyneth Paltrow would have us like go down the direction of, but conscious coupling. So, why don't you start us off, Alex? Why don't you tell us what you see conscious coupling as?
All right. Well, I will slightly reword that and say what conscious coupling is being presented as and what I'm seeing it being presented as via the world of course, social media,
which is the world.
Where else? I mean, I don't think the world would exist without it. I mean, if I didn't have a phone, I didn't take a photo of it, it didn't happen. It didn't exist.
No, if it wasn't on Instagram, never happened.
If I didn't do a little dance to it on TikTok and all of this, it didn't happen.
Yes. You know? Or Triller, the new one. Are you on Triller yet? Have you gone there?
No, I have not. I have heard about it mostly because of the boxing. Actually,
how am I ahead of you when it comes to?
I'm not on it. I've heard of it because of all the boxing and all those, what's his name, the Paul brothers being on it. I could say, let's not go there.
No idea.
Really not worth knowing. To be honest.
Good to know.
Really not worth it. Okay, but so what I'm seeing it being presented as this, this holy matrimony between two people who are, deeply in love with each other and are doing the work together, and it's all glorious and it's all rose petals and fireworks and, multiple orgasms and, a wonderful affair of many different things, which kind of feels like a forced narrative, if I'm quite honest. Dare I say a little bit fake?
Yeah.
But
and when you say that,
media, but it could never be fake because it's on social media. So it must be the be all and end all and the truth.
Right. When you say false narrative, do you mean that you think that people are actually in a conscious couple, but the way they're presenting it is crap, or they're not actually in a conscious couple, they just think they are, so are presenting it?
Honestly, probably a bit of both.
Right. Okay.
Probably a bit of both, and they're probably not presenting the truth of what's actually happening.
Sure.
And even when they do present the truth, they present the truth in a very glorified manner. It does come across as putting oneself on a pedestal type of vibe, and hero complex, heroine. Let's just call it hero for both male and female.
Yeah.
There's one word, like actor these days is both female and male. Just actor. Very much feels like that hero complex type of thing. And it feels as if it's something that everyone should be doing.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone should be in a conscious couple, and if you're not, you can't sit with us. And if you can't sit with us, it means you are banished to the loneliness table in the corner, and not allowed to be friends with us. So yeah, that's kind of like the basic of it. That's kind of how I feel as if it's being presented, type of vibe. And for you, how do you think it's being presented?
A bit of that. I mean, I am in situations where I've actually got both levels of exposure. So obviously within the kind of social media world, there's always the tendency to, let's say misrepresent, there's
that's a very good word for it. That's a very good word for it. Yeah.
But I also know people who are in conscious couples, and that, I mean, they're kind of not particularly coupley about it on Instagram. It's like, I almost think that if people are presenting their relationship status as something that they're talking about all the time, it's probably not real. It's probably not a truism for them, which I don't think I understand why you would do that. Really, like,
yeah.
But I also know of people who are so convinced by this narrative around conscious coupling and having conscious relationships that they are, you know, trying to call it in,
Yes,
which I respect. I understand where that comes from. And I also feel like if you're trying to call in that conscious relationship, where are you lacking is the question that comes to me. It's like, why are we looking to the other to complete, to fulfill, to do all the things? And
okay,
then
podcast over, done. We have now nailed it.
I always have that ridiculous habit of like, let's just sum up sum up the whole thing in like 2 minutes. Why are we having a podcast at all? But it is interesting because I see way more people attached in a trauma bonding way because they believe that it's a conscious coupling situation than I see conscious couples.
100%. 1000% even.
So let's put some like descriptions on that for people. So why don't you explain trauma bonding for people in your way, and I'll kind of add bits that I think.
All right, so I'll put it very, very simply. For me, what I understand to be a trauma bond is when you essentially, how am I going to put this into words? 1 second. Yeah, you got to find the right words to this because I can go down so many different avenues.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'll go down one avenue and probably when we're finished recording, I'll be like, oh, I've got to go down this other avenue.
Yeah.
I'm confident that hopefully you shall fill the gaps as well. So one aspect of trauma bonding is where you are essentially projecting a deficiency, a so-called deficiency within yourself onto someone else, and then you are literally attaching yourself to that person as the be-all, the savior, the person who's going to help lift you up. And it actually becomes quite codependent. And to me, that's quite toxic because you're no longer as accountable and as responsible for your own shit. It's now the other person's so-called responsibility to heal you, to help you, whatever terminology you want to use. So that's one aspect of trauma bonding. I will now flip it to you and say, what to you is another aspect of trauma bonding?
So that's kind of a very big foundational aspect of trauma bonding, is that whole kind of like projecting issues onto others, etc. And then you are absolutely right, becomes codependent, and codependency gets bandied around as a word that people don't understand either. Codependency really is like making your well-being contingent on somebody else, which means that when they're down, you're down, it's your responsibility to fix them, and vice versa. So it's very kind of non-sovereign. It's very kind of meshed, which again is another form of trauma bonding when you're not kind of in your own sovereignty around it. Another aspect can also be being attracted to the familiar just because it's comfortable, which can leave you being attracted to parental dynamics. So however your father made you feel or your mother made you feel in your youth, whatever was safe whatever was familiar is interpreted by our nervous system as safe because it's our caregiving origins. And at that point, even if the familial environment in your youth was flipping toxic, abuse or anger or rage or all those things, you can normalize that in your own being. So you then become attracted to somebody who's going to perpetuate that dynamic. And there again is a trauma bonding type thing. That's another key way that people can be kind of trauma bonded. And I see both in people who are like pretending to be conscious couples.
Yes, very, very much so. And to me, it's very easy to spot it, but I don't know if that's just me, because I've always been have a very penetrating aura to those who are going to remember the projectedness of human design. But no, I've always been able to just see through stuff. And it's very easy for me, and I'm speaking personally to everyone who's listening, this is just for me, I find it very easy to see through someone who's being authentic, couples who are being authentic, and couples who are just putting on a show. For me, one of the biggest giveaways is perpetually posting on Instagram with you, or social media, whatever, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever. Photos of you having the times of your life, living your best life. Most certainly this is anything but a best life, and is most likely a deeply unhappy life which you are promoting as your best life, so you can get your likes and your dopamine hits and your ego massaged and aggrandized to another level, but is essentially a black hole which keeps on sucking itself into the vacuum, and you need more fakery to get yourself out of the black hole, and it's this horrendous ebb and flow.
And it's
very empty.
Yeah, it's very empty and very I have a lot of compassion for people who are doing that, bizarrely, It's like there is no need to constantly tell everyone about your divine relationship on the Instas. And you can tell when it's authentic. There's a couple of people I can think of in my head who do like put on their stuff about their relationship quite a lot, but actually I know it's authentic. It's just like they're the kind of people who story a lot, and they'll just put a story on saying like, isn't she wonderful, or like a video of partner just walking along, and you believe it. Like, it's not nonsense, it's something that's very kind of true. But yeah, and so in essence, what would you say is the heart of a conscious coupling relationship then?
So this is going to sound quite controversial, but you don't need each other. You don't need, this is the heart, for me, the heart of a conscious couple is you don't need each other. You're just choosing to be a part of each other's journey for a certain amount of time. The time is indeterminable. It doesn't matter. Could be a day, could be a month, could be a year, the rest of your life, whatever. You're there. You don't need each other, but you're choosing to journey with each other in order to grow to become the best version of yourself. That to me is the core foundation, the core principle of, to be honest, I wouldn't even call it conscious coupling. I would just say anybody relationship.
Anybody relationship. I know. I mean, yeah.
And that's something I have to say about the whole conscious coupling. I'm like, why does it have to be called a conscious couple? Why can't it just be called a relationship? Like, why can't that be the norm? And what we should be doing. You know what I mean? Not should be doing, but something that, you know what I mean? To me, that's common. I guess to me, that's common sense. But what about you? What is it for you?
So yes, I love that sort of outline. I think the thing that I'd probably add into that is within conscious coupling, shall we say, like, yes, I'm with you. I believe that this should be the norm for relating. Like, there shouldn't be a need to sort of like, oh, well, they're in an unconscious couple and we're over here in a conscious one. But I think for me, the level of willingness to take everything as your responsibility and do the work for you is the core of how to consciously relate. So whether that's a friendship, a business partnership, or whether it's a romantic relationship, I've always been, well, no, I haven't always been. I'm very committed to being authentic and taking everything as my journey, my responsibility. And when you bring that into relationship, it doesn't cross over. The responsibility for stuff does not become the other person's. It actually becomes aligned and together. But your stuff is always your stuff. And I think the kind of sacred union couple thing is very much committing to working on each other's stuff together, holding space for the other, working on your stuff, and just doing it together in a way that means that you're kind of evolving equally alongside one another, rather than one person who's doing all the work and going over here, whereas the other person's still staying here, because that's the shortest way to divorce and separation.
Yes, and what was it? Conscious uncoupling.
Right. Although typically, if you're calling it conscious uncoupling, it's probably not that conscious. You're probably just like, but and so it is, and this is where the Instagram bullshit comes in, because anybody who's like in a conscious couple but is like doing the Instagram kind of like whatever they're promoting, being in conscious couples, what I've witnessed most is that these are the realest relationships. They're the ones that bring stuff up for people. They're the ones that will keep triggering your wounding so that you can heal. That's what it's there for. So as such, being in a conscious couple is really freaking difficult. It's actually, it's work, and it is a deep commitment to constantly self-evolving, constantly healing, constantly working on your wounds, your shadows, your fears, your pain. And as such, the best type of relationship to be committed to just also a lot. So it isn't Instagram selfies every day.
No, and to be honest, personal point of view, I don't think your relationship should be all over social media. That's just more old school, more traditional. Your private business is your private business. Please keep it there. Keep it for your friends, your family, when you see them. You know, like barbecues, park visits, cinemas, parties. Obviously, fine. I've personally never been a big fan of what can I find the word? Promoting one's relationship on a platform of any kind. I've done it once, and I realized, oh god, this is actually really not very good. You then also get the aspect of other eyes on your relationship and a lot of potentially negative energy, which within the spiritual realms, for those of you who are well versed in it, you are getting potentially a lot of negative energy coming in at you and trying to take that framework and architecture down. So you then have to basically become a bit of a wizard or a witch and learn to set up the right grids around you so that your architecture doesn't get taken down. It's like a whole nother dynamic to this aspect of putting stuff out there to the public, because the more you are seen, the more people can tap into your energy and the more they can throw darts at you if they wish to throw darts. Of course, they can also do the opposite and throw complete, love and light and everything, but both sides, right?
Yeah, and I think that's it's always the risk with social media when you put yourself out there. I mean, I do put a lot of stuff on social media. I used to do more, actually. I've not done so much recently. Not for any, it's not been a conscious choice, to be honest. It's just been, I've been like working away in the, on my own stuff, and it's not all like share. But there is that ability to invite positivity, but also the negativity that comes along with it, or just to base your self-worth on how many likes you get and how much feedback you get. And I still do it occasionally. Like I put gold content out and I'm like, oh my god, that makes so much sense, that post is brilliant, and I'll get a handful of likes, and it's like, and you do go through that process, like, I just wish more people would see my stuff because I know I'm delivering a service. And then you go through the whole calculation of, but you're also going to get the back chat and apparently we've got a dislike on one of our YouTube videos as well. I don't know which one, I haven't checked it out yet, but I was just like,
thanks guys, appreciate it, love you.
We love you.
We'll find you. Take it style.
Yeah, we'll hunt you down. Yeah.
Liam Neeson. We'll put on the accent as well, and you'll be terrified.
You will be terrified of Alex's accents. He's been sending me voice notes this morning in accents, and they are atrocious.
They are the best thing that Victoria's ever heard. She's just teasing me live online right now. They are simply sensational accents.
They're really not, guys.
They are. They made it illegal for me to be an actor because they just heard the accent. They were like, "Dude, no, I'm sorry. Like, you'll get the Oscars every year. Like, it's just." The BAFTAs, the Golden Globes, would just be a one-sided affair. It would just be Alex Frace. Be be a travesty for any other hard-working actor to compete against such.
And this is another brings up another interesting point about the sharing on social media stuff, because sometimes when you share on social media, when one shares on social media, humor just doesn't translate. So
struggle.
Yeah, so unless you are doing the sort of TikTok videos and all that kind of stuff, like
the real,
your majesty would not be sort of conveyed on the interwebs.
No, which is why the reels are great, because you can convey those things. I know you're not a fan, but Victoria Fenton, we shall soon get you on the reels, and we won't have to get you pointing unless you want to point. You can just talk and be funny, as you naturally are, and you can just say but boom, but boom. If you want, you don't have to do the pointing. You can just do the look instead. And
I can just see the comic. For anyone not watching the YouTube version of this, like Alex and I are full on acting out real comedy right now.
Gold star shit. Gold star shit is what we're talking about. This deserves a like. This on
YouTube people, like, give us a like for just this section. It's amazing.
Exactly, very much so.
Oh my god, like we have a top. I write the what we've spoken about this week, by the way, guys, on our kind of Apple listing and YouTube, and every week I'm like, we did not stick on topic. We went like left, right, up, down. So I'm like writing the synopsis, like, what do we talk about?
We are the whole compass. We hit every single direction possible because we are multifaceted and multi-talented.
I'm just going to start
But
writing. Just listen. Just listen. It was interesting.
But let us find our true north again and get back to conscious coupling.
Conscious coupling, yeah.
It can be an absolutely wonderful thing, and it is a wonderful thing to do. It is obviously very hard work, but you know, if you are choosing to live a spiritual life and to be the best version of yourself, and you are someone who holds themselves accountable and holds themselves responsible for their own actions and their own growth, it'll be the norm for you to enter into a relationship with someone who wants to do the same.
I think that's exactly it as well. Like if you are a conscious human being living your life kind of dedicated to your conscious awareness, awakening, whatever you want to use as words, you will end up in a conscious relationship because you're a conscious human being. So you're still going to be doing your stuff. And unless it's there to trigger you to have a moment where you actually heal a wound, you're going to end up with an equally conscious other. And if you are conscious and you are seeing somebody else as unconscious, it's probably a reflection of somewhere where you are unconscious.
Yes, exactly. And it's like the perfect opportunity for you to grow and to be like, hang on, something which is unconscious in me is now becoming, you know, it's entering my subconscious and entering my, well, it's entering the conscious in front of me. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. Now it's time for me to delve into why it's there. And what can I do to A, no longer be triggered by this, B, hold the space for this person if they are in a triggered state, emotional state, you know, ups and downs, whatever state you're in. And then also, how can I do my own work? You know, find the right time. If you, what I would say is, don't both go down at the same time. You will. It's a very fiery roller coaster, and as we all know, fiery roller coasters are not something that one enjoys at all. If anything, I was going to say greatly, but at all, because it's an absolute shitstorm is what it is. So one of the most important things you are going to have to learn is the balancing act of when one goes up and the other one's down, I can hold the space for the one who's down, and then it will flip. If you'll both go up, fine, perfect, amazing, but you will not always be at the high vibe level the whole time. One of you will drop down, and when it's that time, hold the space, be there, be present, allow them to work through their process, help them as much as you can without allowing them to become codependent on you or dependent on you, and flip-flop when it's appropriate. Otherwise, not such a good relationship.
And it is very much about self-awareness at that point, you know, checking in with yourself to go, where am I? How much have I got to give today? And if it's nothing, you can tell your partner that, and you just say, I'm operating on very little right now. I'm going to need some help, and they should step in for you. I mean, and if they can't, I mean, I'm a great big fan of, you know, having coaches. Why wouldn't I be? Because I am one. But, you know, having that neutral third party in a relationship where you can have somebody outside the relationship where you can take your struggles. I think there's a great tendency in it's the Disneyfication of life. There is this belief that we should have one person who is our everything, who we get everything from, and can provide endless support, even though we're in a relationship with that person. So that dynamic will need some support from somewhere external. So having that third party who's outside the relationship, who can actually enter into being a support role for you to help you process some of the stuff that happens in the relationship. So that when you are, and it's not never going to happen when you're both on low energy, particularly if it's something that's affected you as a couple, like some tragedies affected you as a couple, there is a need to have that kind of support structure. And if you don't have it from friends, pay for it. Like, it sounds like a really weird thing to say, but if you pay for it, you are demonstrating to the universe that you need it. So the universe will reward you by giving it to you anyway, not just from the person that you're paying. It's a start.
Exactly. It's the first step, you know. It's like you're stepping foot into the paddling pool, and the universe is like, I see they are in the paddling pool. Let's give them some armbands now so that they can go swimming.
Yeah. And it is that you have to show up somehow. You have to like be committed to something. to demonstrate where your energy is at. And that's the whole thing about conscious coupling and conscious relationships. There needs to be that kind of open conversation of commitment to the fact that you are in this together. And there shouldn't be any conversation you can't have with a conscious couple, within a conscious couple.
Yes, exactly. I think every topic within your relationship should be worth having a conversation about. Whether it's your preference for what, okay, so let's go superficial stuff first. What clothes you decide to wear, and if you are deciding to look drib and drab, baggy clothing or whatever, and your partner is noticing that, hey, you don't normally dress this way. Like, what's happening? That's definitely a thing worth having a conversation about, because it may be something you are unconscious about, that you're maybe sliding into a negative pattern because you're not taking care of your physical state as well. You're not projecting, who you are. You are trying to dial yourself down, not be seen so much, and having that partner that you're like, hey, by the way, I've noticed you're not wearing the same clothes as you normally wear. Wagwan, my man. Wagwan, my woman. What is happening?
Don't say it like that, especially if you're in a conscious relationship.
Exactly. You must say it with that tone, just wagwan, my man, wagwan, me Julie. What is happening?
Anyone's in a conscious relationship with me and says that, they will get a slap around the face.
The issue is, Victoria, if that is their kink, then you are in deep, deep trouble, because they'll be like, slap me again. You're like, that's not the direction it was going to go. This is a mistake and I regret this immediately.
Alex is always one step away from porn, unfortunately, guys. It's just
I am not one step away. I am porn personified. I am wearing a polo neck after all today. Hello,
I know.
Jean-Paul.
Looking very French today, though, mate. It's like you kind of like.
No, I'm the French language, absolutely.
Yeah, we're not gonna start talking French though, because Victoria's French is fucking appalling.
It's pretty bad, yes. It's being polite, yes.
I'm just so literal. All of my, it's like, it's really, really, really literal. I will just like, I did it yesterday in Spanish as well. Somebody's like, it was a running joke at the moment with a friend of mine that I need to move to Mexico. So he was saying, brush up on your Spanish. And I was like trying to practice Spanish. And it was really literal. I don't have a non-literal brain. It's like, I was trying to say love your face, the comment in Spanish, and I was like really literally translating it, and then I worked out on Google that there's probably other ways to say it. So yeah, I'm just yeah.
Good. Okay. And then you have other types of conversations I think are always worth having within conscious relationships, such as, what is your life path, and what do you see yourself becoming, and what are you currently doing, and what are you doing to get to where you want to be, and also, why are you not doing those things, or why aren't you dreaming big enough, or why don't you have a large enough vision for yourself, or why are you currently doing what you're doing as opposed to not doing that, which clearly is where I can see your passion is.
And all of this comes down to, it's not the conversations are on or off the table, because they should all be on the table. Maybe not when you're in the middle of being triggered. Again, go to the neutral third party, then bring it back to the relationship. But it's how you have these conversations is the difference. It's not just you're not doing what you should be doing. Like, why aren't you dreaming big enough? Like, it's not accusatory, it's not judgmental. It's very much about having the conversation, which exposes the vulnerabilities that are often underneath everything that people are doing, the needs that are not being met, and the inner narrative that is driving the decision, or the lack of decision, the lack of action.
It's like an Inquisition as opposed to the Spanish Inquisition. So it's very, very different in what is happening. We're not trying to completely wipe you out and create mass genocide within you. Yeah. We are merely inquiring or posing inquiries for you to, funny enough, to contemplate.
And it's very easy to use words that have slight judgments in them. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this recently in terms of what are actually words that describe your own feelings versus what are words which imply a judgment on another person for your feelings. All the kind of non-violent communication stuff, which we have touched on before, which at its heart is very good, but is extrapolated so badly now that people just think if they start a sentence with I, they're communicating non-violently. It's like, no, that's not actually what non-violent communication is and should be. And the thing about being in a conscious couple is that if you're listening to this podcast and on this path, you will have to know all of these tools for yourself before you get anywhere near coupledom. Or if you're already in a couple and you're starting on a new path, it's very possible, and has happened, that things change for that couple. The couple could end. Like, this is not hanging on to everything relentlessly just because it worked once and it made sense at one point in time. There's a cessation that can happen in relationships when there's no common ground anymore. And this is really the kind of thing you have to be doing together. You cannot have one person who's kind of showing up and doing all the work, but the other person's still stuck in victim mode. It won't work.
Yeah, and that's very true. And there are, certain times whereby it gets really, really difficult to deal with stuff, because let's say you're dealing with the mother wound, or you have an unconscious towards, the mother wound, and your partner is reflecting that within you. You're being faced with that every single goddamn day. And sometimes it may be too much for you at that point in time for you to be with that person. You may feel as if it is too much for you, which is okay. You have to do what you feel is intuitively right for you. So if you feel that actually I need to step away, you need to step away. If you want to lean into this discomfort and really deal with it within that aspect of a conscious couple, you really can do a lot of work in an expedited amount of time. Like, years worth of work within months worth of relationships. But again, I think it's important just a caveat. Hey, buddy, if you don't think you can do it, or you feel as if it's too much for you, it may be at this point in time, it is a little bit too much for you. And maybe you need to see a therapist. Maybe you need to see a coach, a healer, someone else to help you through this. And then when you feel as if you have the tools, we were just talking about extra tools, you can then come back to this type of relationship more well equipped. But there is also the option of trying to stay in the relationship whilst building the tools up. Just know that it'll take time, and you will need a partner who's an angel to be patient with you. And sometimes it's just not meant to be, and that is okay, guys. I think something that I've seen within a lot of conscious relationships is that people try to hold on thinking, no, it's fine, we can work through this. Like, we just got to work through our shit, and we can just work through this, and be fine. And again, I think that's a false narrative, because of things like fucking Disney movies, man. Like, happy endings, princes, boys girl, boy meets girl, absolute fucking nonsense, type of vibe. Like, you need to know when to call it quits, and that to me is actually very conscious. That is a very big part of it. It's like, okay, well, you know what, you need to go left right now, and I need to go right, and that's okay, because as I said in the beginning, I don't need you, you don't need me. We are on this path for a undetermined, unspecific amount of time. When it is time to go, it is time to go. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's not going to hurt. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying you need to make the decision, the choice that, okay, thank you very much, I love you, I wish you the best, goodbye.
Yeah.
And I feel that having a community around you, not just like having a coach, of course, and friends, but having a community around you, and it's something we generally quite lack in society. So I'm talking from a society, like a very big picture. If we had the community around us to support us within this journey and people to fall back upon, this type of situation would be much easier to work through. And you wouldn't need this whole sort of I'm very against this whole conscious uncoupling type of thing. I don't think it's actually very healthy. My own personal point of view. If you disagree, please let me know in the comments. Very happy to have a chat about it. You shouldn't be in constant contact with the person you are uncoupling with. because there's no uncoupling. It's very much like cheese on a pizza. You think you are being pulled away, but you're very much still attached to the rest of the pizza. Good sir, good madam, that is not very healthy.
You must, I mean, obviously, if there's kids involved, that lends a different kind of energy to it.
Different dynamic, of course. But again, the community is there for a reason, right? They can help to hold, to support the children and you during these difficult times. So this is something I deeply wish for society, is to have more community-based, almost more like tribal communities. And I mean that not in like warring tribes, I mean in terms of tribes who all collaborate together and who bring different skill sets to the greater tribe.
It's interesting, this week I've been doing a lot of thinking about needs versus wants, like what do I need versus what do I want. And for me, it lends an interesting dynamic to this thought process, because for me, as you know, as our listeners will probably know, I've done so much on my own for so long. Business, you know, all the things, it's all me, it's all on me. And I hold a lot of people within that business, within the work that I do. And I was having a really deep conversation with somebody this week, and I sort of like, I really hit upon, I can't do this on my own anymore. Why am I doing this on my own anyway? And it is that conversation that then starts of like, well, why don't I just work with people in my business? And I've tried to do it before, tried to do it with networks, but it requires very specific people because of who I am and how much I bring. There has to be an infrastructure where that is supported and nurtured. And it is, you know, I'm talking about business relationships, but they have to be entered into consciously as well. It's a conscious couple in a business sense, because I absolutely shouldn't need that person that I bring into my business from I can't do this on my own, and I don't, because I proved that I can. But desire, does it make it fun to do this with other people? Does it massively help? Can it round out my thinking? Can it, you know, only improve the service that I can offer and the amount that I can cover and hold and give? Of course, absolutely. It doesn't just 2x your output, it 10x's it, because you are literally putting yourself in relationship with somebody else where you can just absolutely fly. But it has to be built in such a way that the foundations are supremely conscious. So you have to get it so that there is just that mutual respect and understanding that at the very moment where it's not right for either one of us anymore, there's an easy separation to happen. And in a business, it can be slightly trickier because there's often mutual assets and stuff, but so too with couples. If you bought a house together, joint bank account, all that kind of stuff. But for me, that contractual nature of business should also apply in relationships. You know, do we have a contract that when this goes south, this doesn't work, can we easily split? And it, you know, people, I remember when prenups became a thing and everyone was like, oh, this is so terrible, this is predicting that relationship's going to fail. And it's like, and I think I thought that at the beginning, I thought, oh no, that's a horrible thing to do. But then it's like, actually it's the right thing to do, because you go into the relationship not dependent on it, not needing it to work. Doesn't mean you don't want it to work, doesn't mean you don't put all the effort in to make it work, but you don't need it to work, because there's potential and light outside of it. Is, I think, is super important, whatever type of relationship you're considering.
100%. It's okay, common sense to me. Perhaps not to others. But you know, I think all these type of things, like if you are truly conscious, then you will, you know, let's talk about prenups. Like you will be completely fine with having a prenup, because you understand that you don't need the other person. You're your own person. And obviously you have that open conversation to what the prenup entails. You know, in whatever way works best for you as a couple. You know, if it's okay, we entered in this relationship, let's say, I'll just throw out ballpark numbers, I have 50 grand, you have 50 grand. When you go into a relationship, if we come out, you know, you keep your 50, I keep my 50. If we build something together, you know, within a company, within our work together, we split that half and half. But the money, you know, that I make with us, I'm married, and the money which you make whilst you're married, you know, you split it. As in, sorry, you keep your respective amounts that you've made separately. And then if you have kids, and let's say mum is taking more time off, you have the conversation of, okay, well, this would be worth compensation of this amount compared to what you would earn. You think about it really structurally, really pragmatically, because it's not something to get, in my opinion, it's not something to get emotions tied into, because then it becomes a very murky waters, and that's where a lot of wounding can occur. It's great in the aspect of a lot of healing can come out from it. If you are struggling with money issues, if you're struggling with safety, security, stability, whatever, it's a fantastic healing opportunity. But it's very much a factual point of view, because it's needed to just be clear. But you state your needs, right? You say what you feel you would need, and you have that open conversation. That's the way, for instance, this is the way that I would structure a prenup. If I ever get married and if I have a prenup, that's the way that I would structure it. If you want to structure it differently, by all means, please do. I'm not saying this is the only way. This is just my way.
And it's interesting because the things that do create the friction are those wound points, like money wounding and all that kind of stuff. And for me, just bringing it back to the business again, like I don't have that level of grippiness on things. Like there's no real ownership of stuff. So it for you and I, it's really obvious. Like, and we've loosely said, like, if we ever make any money out of this podcast, which like it's never gonna happen, but like it's equal. Like we don't like we're so unattached to like that part of it. And there are costs involved in running a podcast, and you have to host things and launch things and pay for things, and this it's like having a conversation about something so bleeding obvious, though, right? Because it's just like, well, obviously you just separate things, and for me that's obvious, but for others I've noticed that it isn't. There is this, like, when people feel like they don't bring the value, they're like, oh, I'm worried that I'm not going to be committing enough into this thing, and all. It's just like effort doesn't always equal work hours, man hours. That's not what it is. For me, there is always an imbalance in the working relationships I get to in terms of work hours, because my output is, I can do a lot, but I absolutely wouldn't be without the other people, because they are the inspiration, they're the space, they give me the time to do it. It's all of those things. So this is not equal in terms of everything has to be absolutely balanced. It's how much do you bring.
Yeah, I was like, the weight of it, essentially speaking.
Yeah, nice way of putting it. Yeah.
The weight of it. So see the scales, what's worth more, split it accordingly. Very much common sense.
So have you ever been in a conscious couple?
I have, yes, a couple of times. It's been interesting. It triggered the absolute shit out of, grown a lot in a short amount of time. I mean, it's great. It's a lot of work. It's difficult, but I love it. I think it's great because I grow exponentially quickly. I work very, very quickly anyways. Like I super, super fast at dealing with my shit and processing and integrating it.
Yeah.
And then if you have someone who's there, keeps you accountable, like you just stay on it, and it's great. So for me, I enjoy it. It's kind of the relationships that I really do enjoy. Even though, like, I currently have a lover, and it's still an aspect of, I told her, listen, I will be kind of using you for like spiritual growth, in terms of if I get triggered by stuff, I'll be using that by stuff you say or stuff you do and stuff like that. I'll be using that for my own growth, and it's wonderful. It works very well. And funny enough, this is actually, we joked about it the other, I think it was earlier on this week or earlier on last week. We're like, this is the healthiest relationship ever. Like, I've never had communication so clear in my life. Like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this triggers me, this doesn't trigger me, I'm in pain, I'm hurting, I'm happy, I'm sad, whatever. Open, completely open, and is wonderful, actually, I have to say.
And do you think that's because it's not a relationship? Do you think you're finding that easier because you aren't,
No, I think if it were, no, because we both talked about it, and it's like, it would, for me, it would be the exact same, because it's for me, it's the way I am.
Yeah, sure.
For me, this is the way I am, and I don't change personality and stuff like that. So for me, I don't think it would change, and for her, I don't believe it would either. You know, it's amazing, and it's the perfect tool for the next person I enter a relationship with. You know, and just having the confidence to just talk about something which is hurting or triggering.
Yeah. Our listeners won't forgive me if I don't say, why don't you just enter into a relationship with this person, by the way.
Okay, so we have different philosophies on life, on relationships and partnerships. Okay. She's polyamorous, I'm not. So it wouldn't work from that foundational perspective. And I've had people like, what if she wasn't poly? I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So what's the point in thinking about it? Type of vibe, you know, like it's like if, when, but, woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Totally.
To me, really pointless, really worthless,
right?
Stupid.
Yeah, I think that a lot. Like, people ask me questions about stuff, and it's like, it's not even a potential. So I haven't even thought about how I feel about it because it's not a thing.
Exactly.
How would you feel if it was completely different? Well, it's not. So let's not even think about it. Like,
how would you feel if, you know, they were single and like,
right. That's the one that I'm thinking about. It's like, how would you feel if they weren't married? How would you feel if they? Well, that's not the thing. They are. So like, it's.
Why would I think about that? My brain just goes like, what the fuck?
Right.
Like, that your brain may think like that.
Right.
Very telling of you.
Yeah.
Let's be fucking honest here. It's more telling of you than it is of me.
Right.
I can't compute this irrationality.
Yeah.
But I think that people like you and I also have a tremendous amount of respect for people in relationships, that when you see someone in a relationship, immediately it's friend zone, and immediately it's like, I can't think of you sexually. Like,
right.
You're like a droid, you're like an android, and I can't think of you that way.
Right. Yeah. And I have in my own head, I don't know that I've spoken about this out loud before, which is interesting, but I have like that in my head, it's a difference between married and very married. Like, because I know that you are, but you know what I mean when I say it though, right? There are people who are married and they're like, that relationship, they're not in that relationship. They're looking outside. We know that's not a happy marriage. But then there's people who are very married where even if I've met one of the people first, like I automatically, even without meeting them, have so much love for their partner because it like they make them. And that's it's not even a starter for me. It's like
it's amazing. Like, you say that, and I immediately had a flashback to a festival I was at in 2000 and but this was 2014 or 2016. I think it was 2014, and I think it was Boom. It was one of the Booms in 2014. I think it was 2014 actually. And there was this amazing South African couple, and I'd met the husband. We were chatting, and then another guy who was kind of friends with us. Like, I met them all there, type of thing. And one of the guys was talking about marriage, how it doesn't work, being married full time, it doesn't work, and being very, very negative. And I could just see the dude looking at him like. And then his wife came, and his wife is this absolute angel. And immediately I saw the dude light up like a Christmas tree. And I was just like, I love your wife for what she does to you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, what she evokes in you, like the way you change. Right. And I actually, so when he walked away, I actually went up to him and I was like, dude, you're like, I remember telling him, I was like, dude, you're like, essentially, I'm very proud to see and very happy to see the way you handled that, but also the way you are with her. It's like, I basically said this, you are an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And that type of thing is very inspirational when you have those couples who you just know lift each other up and make each other happy. And it's just like, you fit perfectly, and you know that they're not with each other for any, you know, traumatic reasons. They're there because they're there.
And the most interesting relationships like that are the ones that do start from traumatic reasons. You know, that there is a bit of a trauma bond, that is a bit codependent, and then it becomes the safest place for those people to be. And like, I know, obviously I'm speaking about both genders here, but it really strikes me when men are so committed to their partner. I love it. I find very married men, my little terminology, just so safe. Actually, they're really safe because their level of respect for the fact that their partner is making them you know, the best version of themselves in a independent but interdependent kind of relationship is great to be around. It's so great to be around. And it's very
healing.
yeah, it's very nourishing for me as a single female to be around married men who are completely available for another woman, myself, whilst also being completely committed and married to somebody else. It's not always that happens though.
No, and I think that to me, like that's the art of being conscious within oneself, and that lends itself to being in a conscious relationship, because you're conscious of, all right, well, this is my partner who I love, and I'm with them, but I also have love. Let's call it unconditional love as opposed to romantic love, just to make a slight differentiation.
Yeah.
I have unconditional love for this human being, and I want to be there for them during this time because I love them. They're my friend, and I want to see them well. And you know, when you're with a partner who understands that and knows I am not, you know, worried that he is going to leave me or he's going to cheat on me.
Right.
I am perfectly safe and I trust him.
Right.
I mean, that to me is, you know, the holy grail. And
totally.
That's actually something that I saw my father have with my stepmom when she was alive, like years and years and years ago. You know, like he would go out, she would trust him. She would go out, he would trust her. Like she would go out with all her guy mates, he would go out with his girlfriends. Dad, very French, English accent, very French, very flamboyant, very much Leo, hilarious.
What are you saying about Leos? Huh?
He's great, fantastic, utter flirt, utter ego person. It's hilarious at the time. And you know, she would go see her guy friends, and there would be no jealousy. It was very nice and interesting to see, because from a young age you see like things, terrible shows like EastEnders, Hollyoaks, or if you're in America, I guess I don't know, some terrible trashy TV, Real Housewives of New York, or
yeah,
LA, or wherever, trashy terrible TV. You see the amount of jealousy and rage and stuff that's being spat out, and that is incredibly unhealthy. So it's nice to see actually real people with real healthy relationships. At least in the trust dynamic, I should say, because obviously every relationship has their faults and everything.
Sure.
But yeah, but one thing I will touch upon, which I think is very, very important, is that you are within yourself, and before you get into a conscious relationship, you're already doing the work. You're already working on connecting to your true self and removing the negative programming you have installed inside of you. You're removing that old architecture, that old coding, you're removing it, so that when you come in, you meet someone who's also on that level, on your equal, or if not a little bit higher, or just a smidgen lower. And then you can both go up together, as opposed to one of you being super high or super low, or super low, and you just kind of stay there. And it's important that you open yourself up to the divine, God, spirit, who's also within every single one of your cells, because you're one and the same, but you connect yourself to the greater cosmos, the greater pictures, so you allow more things to come to you. So you're more prepared, you're more ready, you have more tools already within you, and you know your triggers, as many as is possible, is what I will say, because you won't know them all. It's impossible, because of your unconscious programming and whatnot. But you are already in the process of connecting to the divine and connecting to a partner who embodies that same level of divinity as well. And you get as far as you can with that. And is, you know, there's an issue of saying yes too quickly to a partner who may seem good for you. You know, it's like, oh yes, this is the person I've been waiting for. No, that's when I hit you. No, like you have been waiting. Like you need to be completely okay and comfortable by yourself. So then when you enter into a relationship, you realize I don't need the other person. It is nice to be with them, and I can grow with them, having that distinction. And for me, very, very important, you know, for the next time I enter into a long relationship, you know, it's not jumping at the first sign or the first person, because they could be tests, they could be lessons for you to say, actually, this reminds you of this previous person, this previous lesson. Do you really want to do it again? Or do you want to say, no, I've grown, I don't want to repeat that, I can go find someone else, or I can wait, I can be more patient, I can wait for potentially the right fit for me, as opposed to someone who partially fits my jigsaw puzzle, but doesn't fit seamlessly into all my jigsaw puzzle pieces. So sort of having a lopsided jigsaw puzzle, which you think is a jigsaw puzzle, you actually have a full jigsaw puzzle instead.
Yeah. And I think that that's another Disneyfication thing. You're always waiting for your prince to come in, and just I think the essence. Sorry?
I was going to say, there's no such thing as a prince or princess. It's just like you wait for, you say yes to the person who you think is right, as opposed to the first thing that comes to you, which is, in essence, for me, the personification of the prince, the princess, the god, the goddess, right? It's like, it's the illusion of it, and you fall in love with it because of the Disney, and because of the movies and society and crap.
Yeah, and I was listening to something the other day where, like, the secret to long-term relationships is not the you know, the things that we think it is. It's actually just really liking each other, like as people, as friends, as co-conspirators in this crazy thing that we call life, as, you know, partners in crime, as, you know, those kind of things safeguard the relationship for the long term. It's not lust, it's not how sexy someone looks in a bikini, it is just how special that person is in your eyes. And it always strikes me that, like, there's 7 billion people on this planet, and like we're all waiting for the one. And sometimes I feel that there's, like you said it earlier, there's people for right now, there's people for now, and there's evolutions in relationships. And it doesn't need to be a long-term relationship, but the secret to being, you know, 90 and still wanting to be with one another is really liking somebody and really being invested in their journey emotionally and, you know, intellectually, as much as you're invested in your own. And I think being completely on your own path, you kind of never need to worry about the out there, the people, the thing that's going to come in, because you're in your path doing you. And at some point, the universe will take you to the point where that other person falls in.
Exactly. That's where the patience comes in. Yeah, it's dare I say, it's like playing a very good hand of poker.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you got to bluff out the ones who aren't worthy of being in the final round with you, and then you get your jackpot.
Can it happen soon though? Hey, like getting old. Yeah.
What about now? Would be great.
Yeah, right about right now. Like, honestly, it's biological clock thing, universe. By the way, just to say, I don't I really hate that whole biological clock thing for women in particular. I think it puts so much pressure on that finding that person. I think a lot of relationships happen because people are worried about running out of time.
And you kind of settle.
Yeah, totally.
And like, that's not a good foundation for bringing up a child. I'm sorry. Like,
No.
Going to disagree openly, and come at me if you want to, but I disagree with just having a kid for the sake of having a kid.
Well, and also a fix the marriage kid. Like, I know many couples have had, you know,
not okay. That is not healthy for a child to be in, because they won't understand what unconditional love and you know, from a couple perspective is. You know, it creates very unhealthy bonds, very unhealthy partnerships, and I know you have that. Like, it's difficult for a man because obviously we don't have the same deep desires you to procreate, right? So I don't want to say, you know, just don't do it, but just be more conscious of whether it's the right thing to have a child for you right now or in this life. If you don't find the right person, then just don't rush it. Just, in my opinion, don't do it. But again, I am not one for playing by the rules. So,
well, and I'll just add some sort of context and perspective on that, because
yeah, please.
What I believe that one person loving a child unconditionally is enough, particularly if you've got community and tribe. So if you want to have a child as a single woman, do it, but don't stay in a toxic relationship to bring up a child because you're worried and frightened about being alone. That will influence the child so much. So we live in a brave new world. There is 1,000,001 ways to procreate now, and there really is no need to stick to the conventions if your desire to procreate is significant enough that you really want to do it. I mean, I'm not in that space, you know. I'll be 35 this year, so technically time is quote unquote running out, although my mum had me when she was 40, and that was 35 years ago, so that was before it was okay to have kids when you're old. So I'm not worried about time running out. I also am very conscious that I could not do it on my own. I would want a partner. So for me, it's with someone or not at all, and not at all is okay.
Exactly, and I think that is something that is so important, especially if you're going to be in a conscious couple. So to understand that if it doesn't happen, it is okay. Like, it is okay. It is not the end of the world. Perhaps, and this will be kind of controversial, perhaps it wasn't meant for you in this life. Perhaps this is a lesson for you in this life to learn that you are not meant to procreate to have a baby, and that is okay. That's fine. It's tough, I understand, to hear that, and in order to accept that, it's probably going to be monumentally tough, but there's always adoption.
Yeah, there's so
like
kids that
if you want a child that bad, you know, if you want a child that bad and you can't have it, adopt a kid. There are plenty of homeless children who need help from loving parents. So, you know, don't feel as if, oh, I can't have one on my own, but no, but you could raise one as your own. And it's kind of like you're acting as that person's tribal community because you're helping to raise them. And, you know, I think if society was more tribal and we had more communities, I think women, I mean, it'd be difficult to, I mean, I still think a man and a woman should make the child together through a divine union, but that's just me. And if you split, you split. But if you have that community around you afterwards to support and you're a single mother, I am not averse to that, because then you can have, hopefully within the tribe there are men and there are women, and the men can be the father figures and the women can also be different forms of the mother figures, or who can support you like that, which is actually one of the really amazing things about the tribes in, you know, South America, Africa, God knows where else. Like, it's raised by the tribe, you know, it's raised by the men and it's raised by the women. So more of that in the Western world would be amazing. It's not savagery, ladies and gentlemen. It's just being completely fucking normal, for lack of a better term. But it really is just being fucking normal. These savages probably are much happier in life than you ever will be. And I think that is something that we really need to take into account, because if we have all the pretty shiny things and yet we're unhappy and miserable, and yet these people who have supposedly, according to us, have absolutely nothing, and yet are smiling and laughing and full of joy and understand the way the world works better than we do, in all of the mind, body, spirit context, then perhaps we may be the savages after all.
True.
Put that out there.
It's funny. Do you know any children of conscious couples? Do you know any conscious couples who have children?
No, I know anyone. Off the top of my head, no. I don't. Do you?
Yeah, I do. And personally as well. And it's so interesting because I get worried about having kids in this society, humanity.
Well, actually, sorry, I guess I could consider my dad and my dad's girlfriend a conscious couple, to be honest, because they do the work together. And they've, for those of you who are new to the podcast, I have a baby brother, baby sister. Funny enough, my dad's girlfriend had them when she was 42 from natural conception, actually, funny enough. So it is possible. So the clock doesn't run out as soon as people want you to believe it does. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, I was just saying, yeah, obviously, and your siblings are a little young to know yet. Yeah, so they're a little young to like be relating to their parents. But I know a conscious couple with teenagers,
wow.
And it's so interesting to hear the different stories, because I get worried about this society and like, oh, it's such a terrible place to bring up kids. But watching a conscious couple who've brought up children, and you're looking at the children and you're thinking they are so well adjusted, they are absolutely, in society. Yeah, the social media is a thing, Instagram's a thing. Girl and a boy, girls 14ish, 13, 14. So just getting to that point where it's like real teenagedom. And actually the children are consciously triggering the parents as well, necessarily so, like when love disappears, when you've got a teenager who's just leaving the kind of support stuff, and then they're doing the work on it. It's such a privilege to watch families just do life better, just do life with that commitment to process and to being involved in your own stuff to such an extent that you're constantly working, constantly just showing up. It's just lovely.
It's amazing. I mean, there's also an aspect of, if you're a conscious couple, but you've already had kids, but then you become conscious later on. There is also the aspect of being able to then pass that information on to your children as they are growing up. And actually, a very close friend of mine, she's done that as much as she can with her kids, and like she's one of her kids is now initiated into the same tradition that we are both initiated into. And the way he's changed is absolutely, I mean, it's a fucking miracle. So you can change the way your kids are, the way they're growing up. If you are late to the party, so to speak, of the conscious couple, I mean, she was basically doing it by herself, but that's, it doesn't matter if you're late to the party, you can still affect your children in a positive way. Obviously, for me, the gold standard is you do your work beforehand, so you change your DNA structure to make it more positive, more light, you pass down less trauma, less stuff onto them, so they have less stuff in turn to deal with. But
we're always going to fuck up our kids, by the way, people. This is not
100%. I mean, without doubt, you're going to fuck up your kids in some way or another. That's okay. What I'm talking about is you doing as much work as possible beforehand. So before you have the kids, your DNA and your spiritual DNA is structured in a much lighter way and a much more conducive way to allow them not to carry most of your trauma through their DNA. So they don't have to then break the chain, because you've already broken the chain and they're like free from that. So they just have to deal with the shit in their normal life, in their normal lives, which is still heavy, but it's a lot less than dealing with your parents' shit.
Yeah, and all the ancestry and all the things. Yeah. And we say in coaching, it's never too late to have a good childhood. It doesn't matter how old you are. When you arrive at my door, we are recalibrating stuff that happened in your childhood. That's literally what I'm doing, because it's necessary. But it would be better if we were evolving as a species in consciousness rather than, starting from, oh my God, wounded child every time. Would be lovely.
Yes, because that just makes the coupling much, much more difficult.
Right.
And then your things play up so much more within the coupling, and even in a conscious couple, it makes it's exhausting. It's exhausting. There's no other way to put it. It's exhausting. I think anyone who tries to say otherwise, like, you're deluded.
Yes. So that's our kind of complete take on conscious coupling. Anything else to say?
No, we can probably do another one another time, maybe. Who knows?
Well, we've touched on a few topics today that we are going to do other podcasts on, because we mentioned I always get this wrong. Polyamory, polygamy.
Yeah, polyamory.
Which is the one?
Polyamory is, I call it poly. Well, I've been calling it polyamory for a while now. So yeah.
So polyamory, and we are going to do one on. We're also going to do one on kids specifically, aren't we?
Yes, we are indeed. We have a whole list of good stuff for you guys.
All coming up in the coming weeks and months.
Exactly. So hold on to your horses, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to exit the stable.
Oh, Alex, you're so weird.
I am who I am, and I am not sorry.
He really is not sorry, listeners. He's absolutely not sorry. Okay, lovely millions of listeners. We will speak to you on the other side. We will speak to you next week with another amazing hour of discussion and rambling.
Bye for now.